This podcast is brought to you by India Knowledge at Wharton. Please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu/India for more information.
India Imagine was the theme of the 2008 Wharton India Economic Forum that was held in Philadelphia recently. The day-long event attracted several leaders including APJ Abdul Kalam, former President of India, as well as CEOs of Indian companies, nonprofit groups, consulting, and private equity firms. India Knowledge at Wharton brings you one-on-one conversations with these leaders.
We are here today with Tejpreet Singh Chopra, CEO of GE India. TP, thank you so much for joining us at the Knowledge at Wharton podcasts at the Wharton India Economic Forum.
Thank you very much for having me here, Mukul.
It's so good to see you again. I remember the first time you spoke to the readers of Knowledge at Wharton was soon after you became the CEO of GE India. How is your first year shaping up?
Mukul, the first year has been great. I've seen a lot of change happen in the marketplace, a lot of change in our own company. I think we've done a lot of work on what I would say localizing our company. Because at the end of the day, our ability to win in this market is going to depend upon our ability to localize. And think about it, we have 15,000 employees roughly in India, and we really have very, very few, I'd say about 10 folks with non-Indian passports. So really, for all practical purposes, we are an Indian company, and it's been great fun in that whole game of coming up with new products for the Indian market, to change the way to get more focus on our whole organization, to develop products in our market, to develop new technologies, not only for India but for the world. And that's our that's what the big focus has been.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about that. I've heard that GE does a lot of R&D in India, catering to the world market. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Mukul, we have a facility in Bangalore and a couple of other centers as well, but the big research facilities in Bangalore, where we now have well over 5,000 technologists, engineers, and PhDs doing pure research not only for the Indian market, but for the global market. A few of the innovations and some of the work that's come out is, for example, they've been doing work on the Gen X aircraft engine in terms of blade design, in terms of compressor work. They've done work on the Evo locomotive. They've done work on in terms of medical diagnostics and imaging. So a lot of the cutting edge technology that you're seeing around the world is actually being done in the labs down in India. But what excites me the most is the fact that they are actually developing these products not only for the global market, but for the Indian market as well. A classic example is we now have this ECG device, which is about an A4 size of paper, which has actually been made for a fraction of the cost of what a normal ECG device costs, purely for the rural market of our country. So today we can actually provide ECGs at a few dollars, which would normally cost $100 with the large, big devices. So that's what we're really trying to do, is reinvent the game and change the way we make products to really serve a completely different market than we ever did before.
That's really fascinating. In fact, having heard you speak on this before, you refer to the way that some Indian companies have become game changers in the way they transform different industries through innovation. And I think one example I've heard you give is of the Tata Nano. Could you tell us a little bit about what work you did on with the Tatas on that project?
Yeah. At the initial part of the program, our plastics division actually worked with them to try to help them to become a supplier to the program. So we've done a little bit of work in terms of designing, working with them in terms of coming up with products that works for the car. But what I tell folks is, I call it frugal manufacturing. The Tatas have reinvented the business model in manufacturing. To be able to produce a product at half the cost of one of the cheapest car out there in the world, and to come up with a good product is quite a feat. So it is this kind of thinking that's really thinking out of the box in terms of really redefining a price point that's changing the way Indian corporates are doing business. And the Nano is a great example of a company that's innovated to win in the local marketplace.
In GE's own manufacturing operations, can you think of any examples where that kind of frugal manufacturing technique might provide value?
I think it could go across a lot of our business lines. I think, again, given the fact that we have such a wide variety of products, it may not be applicable in everything, but the the ECG device is a classic example. We started off from a clean sheet of paper and really, started off at trying to meet a price point that just doesn't exist or didn't exist in our product range today. So that's a classic example. So we will continue to look at all the products that we have that are required for the Indian market to see if we can actually use what I say, what I call frugal manufacturing to get there to make it work for this market.
Right. Soon after becoming the CEO of GE India, you had identified 3 priority areas: infrastructure, healthcare, and financial services. Could you tell us a little bit about in the year or so that you have been in your job? Give us an update of what you are doing in each of these areas.
Right. Mukul, the focus remains the same. It is very much an infrastructure. Within infrastructure, it includes energy, oil and gas, water, aviation, rail. For example, we're evaluating putting up a locomotive plant in India. We're actually looking at the potential of setting up more manufacturing facilities in most of these infrastructure businesses in some of our product ranges. So infrastructure continues to be a big focus area for us in the country, and we've had a lot of wins. We worked on a couple of pipeline projects. We've been working a couple of the refinery projects in the areas of steel industry, in the area of water, in the water field. So we are actively been focusing on the infrastructure side. On healthcare, which is another big focus here for us. Like I said, not only we are trying to, first of all, redesign our products to bring it down to a price point that works in our country, but also we are working with a lot of the big hospital chains to actually help them provide a more packaged solution for them as well in terms of financing and products, etc. So that's a big focus area for us. And financial services, the third area that you mentioned, both on the corporate side, lending side, and on the retail side, we continue to make a lot of positive improvements in everything we do. We've actually dramatically grown our book on the financial services side over the last 1 year.
Have you seen any impact, considering everything that's happening in the U.S. financial markets? Have you seen any impact in India of that?
There is an impact. You see an impact of that in our growth rates, our GDP growth rates. Again, it's still at 8.5% to 9%. It's still a phenomenal GDP growth rate. But one does see an impact of that in the stock markets. When you bring it down a few notches, that for us as a company, sure, there has been a difference. Liquidity is tight in this market, and that impacts all of us. Lending norms have been tightened, given what's happening in this market. But again, I think it's all relative, right? The impact it's having in India is far less than what one is seeing in the U.S. So I'd say there has been an impact, but not as big an impact as you'd see out here. We're still seeing huge positive momentum and growth in the Indian market.
Right. One of the things that I've heard you speak about is how critical winning the war for talent is in India. What is GE doing to win the war for talent in India?
Right. I think it boils down to a few things. One is the GE value system, right? I think that's important not only for our company, but it's important for all the stakeholders that work with us, our suppliers, our customers, the government, the regulators. So everybody we touch, it's important that they understand what we stand for. Now that has a big, strong impact on the employees we hire. So we like to bring in employees that actually share our value system to help us grow. So that's one. Two is we are constantly trying to provide employees the challenges and the opportunities to grow in this company. So a person being recruited in India, after a few years, he has the opportunity to go and work in one of our other facilities around the world. The folks in our R&D center are able to work on projects that are literally a cutting-edge technology. Our labs out there provide them the opportunity to go and work on all these. We produce one of the highest number of patents out of our labs in India versus some of the other facilities around the world. So I think a combination of providing, obviously, the right environment, the right job challenges, the right training, the right opportunities to grow, and the right value systems helps us attract, train, and retain the best talent out there in the market.
That's great. And finally, one last question. Since you're coming up to, I think, your first anniversary in June.
That's right.
What has been the biggest surprise, either pleasant or unpleasant, of the job that you've been doing?
The biggest surprise, in my view, has been, and it's a good surprise, is this growing sense of confidence that's coming out of our country in India. I tell folks there's a strong nationalistic pride developing when I see all this growth that's happening in India. And I'm proud to say that it's a great thing. It's a great thing to see the kind of confidence that's developing in the country to compete with the best in the world. And I enjoy that. And I see the passion that's coming out of our employees and generally from our suppliers and everybody around is fantastic. I think the next 5 to 10 years would be an incredible period in the history of the country.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So thank you very much, Mukul, for having me here.
For more information, please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu/India.